Hello, everyone, and welcome to another interview on Human. Today, we will be interviewing Mary Bell, a lady who has transformed her life and now specializes in breathwork. Today, we will be hearing her story, and I'll be bringing her on now for her to introduce herself. All right, cool, cool. I hope in the recording I'm not like blacked out, but moving forward, please introduce yourself to the audience.
Okay, so I am Mary Bell. I am a neurosomatic breath therapist and a trauma-informed facilitator. I've devoted my life to breathwork now because it changed my life in so many ways. And I've seen my clients transform. I've seen friends transform that do the same work. And it's just brought my life into full alignment of living my truth and being who I authentically should be.
Mm,
So it's really in so many ways. And I have two kids under 6, and I'm married. And yeah, I think that's about me right now.
okay, all right. Well, we're gonna dive in, even more. I wanted to start off with you as how your upbringing was, but I think my first question is, are you from New Zealand? Where are you from?
Yes, I grew up in New Zealand. My dad is actually American from California, and my mum is from England. So they met on an island. They were hippies at the time off New Zealand and just met that way, which I think is pretty dope. But then they they moved back to the mainland and just found Jesus and became quite hardcore Christian, which I'm still grateful for. But it's been a bit of a journey for me, learning
Mm.
learning belief systems and things like that.
So I guess this is going to be an unpopular part, maybe, of the interview for some. But I do have a question now that you speak on that. Um, how do you feel about Christianity yourself, being brought up in it actually? Because I know that's part of your upbringing with them changing and converting.
Yeah, so most of the morals and beliefs I really agree with in Christianity. Um, I happen to fall into a Pentecostal background and I saw miracles and I saw lots of really cool things, but I also saw a lot of control within the church. And I felt like for myself, for my story, I was baptized at 7. 7. What child is dirty? I believed, for me, I believed I was really a sinner and dirty and unclean. And I don't know anymore if I believe that humans are born into sin in the way
Mm,
that we are told. I think I've done a lot of study about, the background of the Hebrew, um, kind of the ways that they lived, and also the early Christians. It wasn't as it wasn't like it is today in the Western world. Um, I still believe Jesus was black, and
mm,
humans have made him to be this white man with blue eyes, and you can just see the photos in the Catholic churches and things, and it got a little bit. I think the whole thing's just blown up, like everything, and everyone gets this into this like belief system and puts God in a box. And
mm,
from doing the work that I'm doing now, it's opened me up to see how big God is, and He's better, and He's more powerful, and there's nothing in spite. It's just all love to me now. So my foundation is God is love,
mm,
and I really experienced that when I had my first baby. My first baby is feeling that love, and I feel that in my breathwork sessions, connecting to God in different ways than going to a church building. And I mean, I did missions. I went around the world. I went to India, Nepal, Solomon Islands, and Fiji to preach the gospel when I was 18 to 21.
mm,
And it was great, but my heart wasn't right then. I was doing it so that I would be seen in the church. Like, it seems so backwards, but I was doing it for the good work so that I could become a leader, or I could go on the worship team, or like be part of something. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. I actually wanted to add on to what you were saying.
Please.
So I myself have been through similar things. A lot of people don't know, but I've lived a lot of life, and I used to sing in a choir.
Wow.
I was also baptized, and I went to Sunday school. I almost took my first communion, right? I think that's what it's called, for Catholics. Um, and my grandmother was heavy into the church. Grandmother was Catholic, my mother was Christian, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I got, like, I guess you could say, the best of both worlds at the time. As life continued, I had some questions, of course, and I think one of the things that led me to start to believe this, so just like you say, God is unquantifiable,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, even I refer to it as it instead of a he, or giving it a human characteristic, because I feel like that's putting it, like, once again, just following what you said, putting it in a box, right? And I relate to God as the higher power that governs the positive energy of the universe, right? That's how I address God when I'm, either praying or wanting to speak, because titles, names, that's all of a human design, right? And when we know human design compartmentalizes a lot of things, right? So I think it's undeserving to put something that I personally think we truly don't understand, right? We catch glimpses. It's just like the truth compared to a truth, right? The
Mm-hmm.
truth, we get fragments of the truth. A truth is an individual, right? That's based upon you. Um, so yes, I wanted to, I don't want to take too much of the interview
No,
away from you.
I love hearing your side, and I'm sure everyone does too.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That's one thing I got to get better at, is actually talking more during my interviews.
Yeah, do it.
But yes, I wanted to say that I do totally understand where you're coming from in that journey. It may not look exactly alike to what discovery we have made or where we got to where we're at now, but it is similar in terms of seeking out more answers, right? And what does that truth truly look like? So,
Totally. Yeah,
yes, indeed.
for me, it was I lived in fear of the devil for so long. My parents always talked about the devil and dreams that they'd had, and we were always under attack as a family because we were so righteous. And it all kind of stopped for me, this whole belief of being in this fear, when I was doing a breathwork session, and it was an inner child one, which is what I teach now. I believe they go hand in hand because it's kind of the programming, right? So
Mm,
you do the breath work, and what it does is it shuts down your ego, and your protective mind quiets, because our ego is just there to protect us. So
right.
I'm laying there, and then you go into your subconscious mind, and the guide was like, go to a house that when you were young, go there, because when you're in this state in breathwork, it can be kind of like an ayahuasca journey where you're actually there as well. Like, you kind of go back in time. It's really hard to explain, but once you've done it, you'll get it. So I'm
Mm,
laying there, going into like my old house, where there was this hallway where I was scared of. Every night I'd hear footsteps down it, and I couldn't sleep. And you go back and meet your younger self, and she was there, terrified, and I'd walk through the door, and she was scared of me. And I was just like, you don't need to be scared anymore. And I hugged her. And from that
mm,
moment, I was like, it was a light bulb. And I was like, like, I just lived in this fear for so long. And just meeting with my younger self helped me out of it somehow. Like, I've got her now. And instead of feeding off my parents' belief systems and, everything I was fed, it was like I took hold of her and I brought her back in, and I hadn't abandoned that part of me anymore. So yeah, it's hard to explain, but it's such powerful work when you're in the midst of it. And it's kind of like the self-love I've never had for myself. Just to accept all those parts, the fear part, the part that you were cringed at, the part that you were scared of yourself. Like, you just go and embrace those parts and help to heal again.
Mm.
Mm.
I don't want to stay too far off the course of my questions, but I do have another one
Yeah.
that is like not here. Um, oof, that was good. I like the way that you explained that. How can we do better with, in your opinion, before I continue down the journey of who you are? Um, how can we be better at becoming one with ourselves? I think, and another question to follow that is, do you think that we ever truly, because life can be long, but it's also short, right? And we're also constantly learning about ourselves, going through changes. So do we ever, do you think, like, hmm, really become one or learn to get to that
No,
level? Interesting.
no. Like, I don't have it all together, but I'm better than I was. And I think that the best versions that we can be is the biggest gift that we can give to the world. And I don't know if I believe in reincarnation, or next journeys and stuff, but I do believe we're getting to a place in our consciousness where we are being more aware, and being more aware brings the change to the healing. So, oh, it's so hard. It's so hard to answer this question, but I don't think anyone's got it together. I
Mm.
don't think anyone's fully healed, because
I like
we've all got.
I like the way you said that. I also had that question, like, are we fully healed? I think that's a really, do we ever truly fully heal? Because sometimes, like, what does even healing like look like? Is your brain compartmentalizing the trauma and pain and everything you went through, or is it truly transmuting out of your body, right? Like,
Yeah. Well, it's like they
because
say onion. So, like, you've got the layers, and for me, I had to peel the biggest layers off, which was the fear. And then I got down to little things. And then another thing came up, and I was like, I thought I healed that. It's always going to be something else that shows. And then I have my kids, and they trigger me. But that's all linked to how I was raised. And, like, my son's so loud, and my whole body tenses up when he screams. But that's only because I was never allowed to be loud. So I'm working through that, and then they'll get to teenagers, and then I'll have another thing that comes up. So it's, I believe our kids are one of our biggest teachers as well, which is powerful because they're younger than us, but they're here too on the same journey. They just came later, but they could know more than you. So kids are a huge lesson, and yeah, it's just like, I want to just heal so that I don't make my kids' lives bad. It's like, I hope that I know I'm going to create some type of trauma, but as long as it's not kind of what I went through, I'm breaking that cycle, then I'm doing something, at least.
I want
Yeah.
to return back to that.
Yeah.
I do. Um, this is great. Wow. Moving forward, how, what part of New Zealand are you in? Let's please educate us about that.
So I am in Katikati.
Hmm.
Um, there's Auckland, which is on the top island. Like, so there's the North Island and the South Island. We're up, the Auckland's there, where you usually fly into, and then we're 3 hours down, and we're on the coast. So Mount Maunganui is kind of what I can see, which is a mountain and a beautiful white sand beach. Um, it's amazing here. And on the coast up is Cathedral Cove, and that's where Narnia was filmed, and Macklemore's video.
Oh,
that,
okay.
oh, I forgot the name of it, but I'll find it. So he filmed a video there, with that guy cutting hair on the beach. I don't know if you remember that. And then down further over the hill, so I'm on the Kaimais, which is like the big mountains, is where Lord of the Rings was filmed. So yeah, we're kind of in the hub everywhere, all these cool places to film.
Lord of the Rings, that was actually a good movie. I like
Yeah,
Lord
it
of the Rings.
was.
I like Lord of the Rings,
Mm.
yeah. Um, ooh, how does the culture of New Zealand differ from the culture of America, you would say?
So,
Ooh, this would be good.
um, I mean, it's colonized and westernized, which is sad. The Māori people are beautiful. They bring a lot of, they call it wairua, like spirit to the land. Um,
Mm,
we're actually on some Māori land, so they found like some old ruins and stuff where we are on our land. So that's really cool, and I feel quite connected to it. I have a studio down the hill, so I bring people here and we do sessions here, and it's such healing land here. Like you can just feel it when you walk on it. Um,
mm,
I spent 2 years in America when I was 23, and I was living in Santa Cruz, California, and I loved it. Um, but I wasn't as there wasn't as the depth that New Zealand has with the loving of the land, and just it's hard to explain. It was a beach town, Santa Cruz, so it's very much like Mount Maunganui just across over here. But um, New Zealand has a lot of spirit, and I
mm.
think that's why a lot of those deep films were filmed here, because you can kind of see it and feel it. And there's lots of ancient trees and native trees and stuff. So it's pretty cool.
Wow. Now, for some odd reason, I had the question already here. I didn't know that you was going to talk about that. I thought it was going to be like a surprise question, but it seems like it's not. How would you describe the spirit of the land when it comes to New Zealand? Before answering the question, I would like to say I too can tap into the spirit of a land from being homeless and going from place to place and
Mm,
having to feel the flow of the city to get just like a feel of what it is I'm getting ready to engage in, right?
yeah.
So I would like for you to definitely describe it and then take it a step further and maybe answer what makes the spirit of a land.
Mm. I think it's the connection that people have with it that
Mm,
makes it the spirit of, because it's, if you can, like yourself, you can connect to the land. It's like, yeah, it's like if no one can connect with it, then what's it's just going to be concrete, like like a city.
hmm
Um, just let it be natural. And I mean, I look out at the mountains every day, and all I think about the spirit of the land is like a whistle, um, like the Maori people. They'll blow these through these shell things, and they'll just make these wind sounds with like these spinny things. And so I don't know the name of them, but it's just it's just got some like passion. I think that's the word. It's got like a passion, and the woman like can what they wail. So like, and they do these amazing songs and waitas. They call them waitas. Um, when you come on the land, they'll invite you in and sing. So and kind of wail like the woman. Oh, it's amazing. You have to
mm.
come here, experience
I
it.
do. I would like to do an interview there, actually. That would be
Yeah,
nice. Right there on the cliff of a mountain. Ooh,
we
that would be
should.
really nice. That would be cool. Um, what was it like growing up in New Zealand? Are there any traditions your family followed that you enjoy?
um, yeah, I mean, I think for myself, I was just raised in the church, so that was my tradition. Um, and my parents would tell me like, because all the Maori people would have stories about Maui, how he pulled up New Zealand, and the gods of the sun and stuff, and they would just call it demonic. So I had led to believe that. It was all a mythical thing and it was all demonic and bad.
Mm,
So I kind of feel a little bit robbed of that. Um, so I'm starting to learn now. I'm starting to learn some of the language and the culture a little bit more and learn some of
mm.
the stories. But yeah, it's just this is what I mean. Like everything's just put into good and bad, and it's so wrong because it's like it's a whole race of people and a whole nation, is kind of just been squished because of this Christianity overlord thing that religion has kind of religion has plucked out any ounce of spirit, I think, in most things. Does this make sense? I just feel like it's taken
It
away
makes sense.
the heart, and even Mother Nature's bad to say. And yeah, I just want everyone just to chill and like breathe slow and stand on the earth, like what we were meant to do.
Yeah. What I want to say is, do you? Hmm. So I know things are split into good and bad, but do you believe that there are like, let's say, negative forces that could be come across as demonic? Do you think that is something that is real? I mean, what is your take on it? I've been through some things in my life to say that there may be definitely some dark
Yeah,
forces out there for sure.
yeah, I do agree. I've seen like this is quite intense, but when I was in these Pentecostal church, I'd see demons like come out of women and men and different voices, and I don't know.
Mm,
I don't know. It could have been really intense trauma coming out. It could have been cellular memory. Their screams could have been just something, their body moving entities out. I don't know. I mean, I don't have the answers for this, so I don't want to pretend I do. And I don't know if anyone like it's, I don't know if anybody knows, but I mean, I'm not down with child trafficking, and all that really disturbing rituals and things that people do. I do believe it stems from fear, though, um, and not love. And
mm.
it's such a hard question, eh? So,
I know.
what do you think?
I think, like I told you, there's a higher power that governs the positive energy of the universe. I think it has its other half, right? Like a yin and yang.
Mm,
A truth, my truth, is extremely complex because
mm,
I've been exposed to things. I'm not going to particularly get into it here in the interview. I'll touch on it lightly, and it refers back to things that we don't know, right? Um, I do strongly believe that we are not alone, and because of that, there's a complexity of what is real and what energy comes from where, right?
mm,
And I think that we've quantified and put, again, not quantified, but we've compartmentalized for our own understanding certain things and gave it labels so that we could possibly maybe better understand it, but we truly don't understand the extent of where these things come from
mm.
or what's truly going on, right? Is
Yeah,
what I believe.
yeah,
Um, and I'm humble enough to say that, I know people read a lot of books, they do a lot of studying, but we only are dealing with fragments of the truth, especially within the public, is what I feel.
yeah.
So to answer your question wholeheartedly and well-rounded, I think that I do believe that there's a level of things that could be demonic. I once told somebody that there's bad and there's evil. And there's a difference between the two. All right.
Yeah.
Evil, I've seen like only a small smidgen of evil. I've seen a lot of bad though to a degree. Right. So I think there's levels to everything, just like there's levels to enlightenment, there's levels to things going dark, right? Like you said, the ritualistic things. I think these things exist for a reason. Now, who's talking to what entity?
Yeah.
I have no idea. Okay. But they do exist. You
Mm.
know, these things do exist. To what extent? I'm unsure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and for the own safety of my sanity to a degree, I have learned to try to withhold myself from going down certain rabbit holes because I've already collected a good amount of information.
Yeah.
And it's a lot to bear. You know, it's like living the truth, right? Uh, or what is fragments of the truth, and then waking up and living life, right? It could be difficult depending on how deep you go within the rabbit hole of finding these fragments and trying to piece them together as to what's really going on.
Mm.
And I have went down that rabbit hole very, very deep at times.
Yeah.
And so it's difficult sometimes living and knowing, you know, certain things and just trying to continue to push forward. And I think this is something that is not spoken about
Mm.
in our daily lives, actually. We live very surface like, right? Everybody wants to project this perfection. Um, Hence the reason for our next campfire session, lack of transparency, isolation through social media, right? Because it's that transparency that's oftentimes lacking even outside of social media when we're dealing with one another, you know?
Mm.
Um, have you ever been in a situation where you've met a person and you knew you had flaw, you know you have flaws, and then you're like, man, if they see my flaws, this may not,
Yeah.
I don't know how this is gonna, because they're judging you based on a perfectionism scale, right? Oh,
Mm-hmm.
this person sees perfect, you know, the halo effect, right? So, um, it's just, yeah, that's my half and that's my take on it, altogether. Moving forward, though, because like I said, the interview is not about me, it's about you. But what did you cherish most about your parents when you were growing up?
My dad's work ethic, which I seem to have taken on, and although he never stopped, but that's all right. He still hasn't stopped, but that's all right.
Oh,
And then my mum's softness. She's got a lot of like she'll watch the news and cry every single night. Like she's just such a good
hmm.
heart. Yeah.
This is, did you pick up on the softness too, or
Yeah,
where do you lie in that scale?
I cry watching like the X Factor. I cry every.
I've seen that X Factor before. Huh. You know what? I've cried too before. Not really watching films, but just life.
Mm,
Life brings me to certain points where I feel the weight of certain things.
yeah.
Um, Now something. Tell me a story of an exciting moment you had when you were growing up, in your teens or young adult age. You know.
Mm. Exciting or funny or like
Yeah, it can be funny. I just don't want it to be tragic, you know. I want it to be positive.
oh, we went to America when I was 11 and we drove across it twice in an RV. Yeah, we went the whole way and I was homeschooling. It was cool. I learned about like armadillos and squirrels and things that we don't have here. I went to Grand Canyon and stuff. That was really cool.
Do you have okay, let me ask this question. Is Australia a neighboring company? I mean, excuse me,
Yeah, yeah.
country?
Like Canada for you guys.
Okay.
Yeah.
Uh, are there like kangaroos where
Yeah.
you are at? Oh, wow.
Okay. But not in here.
Okay. How
Mm.
how how is it like the interaction with the kangaroos and like, that's
Oh,
interesting. I've never,
um,
huh?
they're scary. My two sisters live in Australia, and the kangaroos would sometimes come past their house, and I'd run out and be like, "Hey," and they're like, "No, you can't go out there. They've got massive claws. Like they'll get you if you get too
Oh,
close."
wow.
Yeah,
Oh, no.
but they're cool.
Wow. They look,
Bye.
yeah, they look. And did you ever see a baby kangaroo? It looks really cute. I'm like, oh my goodness.
Yeah,
Wow. Do they really have that pouch? Did you
yeah,
ever see the kangaroo in
yeah.
the pouch? That is
I
so
never
cool.
saw. I think I saw. Well, maybe they have the pouch though. In the
Oh,
pouch.
that's cool.
Hmm.
That's cool.
We we have kiwis here. They're little birds with like massive beaks. That's why we call it kiwi.
Mm.
And they only come out at night.
Ah, Interesting. Are they aggressive like the magpie? Do you have magpies there also?
Yeah, but they're not aggressive.
Oh, okay.
They're like
Yeah. You,
cute, and they walk around. They can't
I would
fly.
like to go out there. That would be cool. I need to go out there to see the nature and
Cool.
everything like that. I like that's cool. That's cool. Oh, did you ever see a chipmunk? Just out of just being
Oh,
funny, because I traveled.
no. Mm-mm.
They're very fast creatures, very small, extremely
Mm-mm.
fast though. Very cute, but that's if you could catch a moment to actually sit there and like see it, right? Like
Yeah.
it's very fast. Um, moving forward, what did you aspire to be when you were in your late teens, early 20s, would you say?
Oh,
Outside of the church.
yeah. Oh, I
Outside
was
of
a
the
makeup
church.
artist, so I was obsessed with being behind the screen. Um, I did a performing arts course when I left school, and I was all right, but I wasn't like my peers. Like they were just like here, and I was like the average one. But the most fun I had was dressing up before going out on stage and getting everyone ready. So I decided to do makeup, and I started working on films
Hmm.
and movies, and I was doing special effects as well. So I was doing like the big wounds and zombies, and it was so fun.
Wow.
Um,
Amazing.
and with that world came lots of women and and a lots of ego. And I mean, I did it for 16 years, so, and I wasn't going to leave, so I was really loved it, and it wasn't that bad, but it wore me down slowly, and I got to a point where I was like, I'm kind of over this now. I want to actually help people,
Mm.
because it was all just outside surface stuff. And then I found myself talking to my clients about breathwork at the last year, and all I would talk about was breathwork to people, and I was like, yeah, I think I need to go do breathwork.
Mm.
Yeah.
Before we continue down that line towards breathwork, I wanted to stop and focus on that because I remember when you was on campfire sessions, you told us a story.
Mm,
And I would like now, within this interview, for you to tell us this story again.
yeah.
Um, so what inspired you to leave a life of what most would consider luxury, you know?
Success.
Interesting.
Um, yeah. I think I was in this women's circle. I'd never gone to women's circles and that. And I was sitting in a women's circle, and they were like, what's your view of success? And I was like, I thought it was that, but it's actually just to be at peace. So it was kind of those moments where I was like, why am I even doing this? Like, I'm only doing this because the world told me that this is good, cool. And yeah, it's crazy, eh? Because it's like, I had an old friend be like, well, you sold, because I had a makeup brand as well. He's like, you sold your makeup brand. And I was like, yeah, I didn't get as much as I could have got. And then he's like, well, that's a bit of a failure. And I was like, no, it's not. I was like, that's your
Mm.
view of failure. But for me, I was like, I'm stoked that I didn't care about money that much. I cared more about my freedom to do what I want to do with my life instead of just like, like when people complain about their job over and over, I'm like, why are you there? I've always been like this. And then I did it. But I was just like, why are you even there? And they're like, oh, or especially in the church, God wants me to stay there. And I'm like, does he though? Like, does he though? Or like, you just really not like it, and he gave you a brain, and you can go and find what you want to do with your life, be powerful in that way, instead of
Mm.
suffer through your whole life.
Why do you think people stay stuck where they're at? I like this part of the conversation.
Because
I got some questions.
I I think because they're scared of their power. It's a self-sabotage thing. It's like, oh, I hate my job. Okay, why don't you go get another job? No, I'm not very good at that. Or I'm too scared. or it's what is it? We're more afraid of the power that we carry. So who said that? Someone said that in some movie, like a fight movie. But we're more afraid of our amazingness and actually stepping into that, because if we fail that too, then we fail. But yeah, and I mean, I'm a singer and I don't sing, so I can't even talk. But I don't sing how I sing by myself in front of people, because I'm like, if they don't like that, that's the best I've got.
Mm.
You know, it's kind of a catch-22. You don't want to go really hard, because if everyone sees your true best
You get
thing,
judged by that.
yourself, so that no one, so you can go, oh, I didn't even try anyway. You know?
Mm.
Yeah,
The comfort of not trying at all
yeah,
is better than the feeling of failure after trying so hard, after exhausting all
so,
options.
yeah,
Why do you think people do self-sabotage?
because it's
Like, what do
safe.
you is safe?
Because then you're not going to get disappointed too. Um, I'm actually reading this book called The Mountain Is You at the moment, and she talks all about this. But yeah, it's the mountain is you. If you want to get to the top of it, you've got to do the things, and the mountain could be in your way. And just, I just encourage people to try. And I
Mm.
think that's why I make stupid reels, because I just want everyone to see how idiotic I can be to the most extreme point, so that I'm like, I'm just going to do this and put myself out there. And sometimes it doesn't work, and sometimes it does. And it's just fun.
Mm.
But it's
I saw
scary.
your reels. Your reels are cool.
Yeah, well, it's
I
scary,
like them.
but it's like, I'm just going to do it just to prove myself, you know, just to prove to myself that I'm not scared and I'm just going to do it. See what happens. Like, what have we got to lose?
Sometimes we need it.
We're going to die. What have we got to lose? We may as well just do things, you know, while we're here.
I like that philosophy.
Mm,
No, I do for real. I think a lot of people, including myself, sometimes I get in my own way with human due to certain things I've been exposed to in life. And I still try to work past, those things that I've been through, traumas, if we want to label it as such, or just experiences, right? Some good, some bad. And just trying to navigate that, especially when you feel the weight of what human is. Like human is it's a pretty heavy weight, like me having the responsibility of tying different people together from different cultures all around the world. It's a responsibility, but I'm grateful to have the opportunity to do it. But I too need to get out of my own way, right? But I've heard different definitions of what that looks like, right? Some people are like, oh, you need to let more people come in, right?
yeah,
Or you need to stop doing this and stop thinking this way. So I think finding out, like, kind of getting it to the point where you're figuring out what is it exactly that I'm doing that prevents me from getting out of my way and continues that trek of me constantly getting in my own way, right? Because that may be something deeply rooted inside you that needs to be worked out.
yeah,
Right? So, I remember you telling me a story about you on a super yacht.
yeah, yeah. I could tell you the proper story if you want.
Yes, please.
Yeah, um, me and a friend were flown over to Australia in Sydney, and it was New Year's, and we worked on the owner of Walmart and her daughter, and we showed up, and we were told not to bring any makeup, but I bought my kit just because I need my stuff, and my friend Rani didn't bring hers. She got fired that moment we walked on the boat for not bringing a makeup kit. Um, she looked Spanish, so I believe that they were being quite racist, from what I could feel. And from that moment, I was like, "You guys are dicks." Like they were just rude, and and Mrs. Lowry walked in, and she was like, hadn't introduced herself. She just fired my friend, and she just waltzed in and she's like, Mary, what did you bring? And I was like, hi, nice to meet you. I'm Mary. This is what I've bought. I didn't downplay myself because she was rich. I'm just gonna like, no, I'm gonna be myself. I'm a human being, okay? Just like you. So she's like going through my stuff. She's like a 60-year-old woman. And she sits down in the chair and she goes, well, we'll see how you go. And I was like, okay. So I start doing her hair, and I'm like, I've got this magic powder that makes the hair go volumey, like big. And she's like, what are you doing? And I was like, this is my stuff that I bought, so I'm going to use it. And she goes, no, no, I've got this other stuff, and went and got this other crappy stuff that didn't even work. And she's like, this isn't working. And I was like, can you please let me use my stuff that I bought? And she goes, okay. So I gave her like this mohawk, and I was like, is that enough volume for you? I was like, and she's like, yeah. She's like, do whatever you want. And then from that moment, she just like fully trusted me. And she was like, you're the best I've ever had, and I want you to come to Monaco. And I was like, yeah, but you have to give me double pay, and my husband has to come. And she was like, nah, because she was quite tight. But I'm so glad that I stood in my power, because at that point, like, she'd fired my friend. It was New Year's. I would rather be with my family. Um, but yeah, it was a moment. She went up to get changed, and I looked out at the water, and I was just like, I just like my little brides in Papamoa, like in my little town that I lived in at the time. And I just wanted to live. I just wanted, because at that time I was like, I'm going to move to Hollywood, and I'm going to work with all these famous people and do all the Kardashian, that was my thing I wanted to do. And it was just all like, nah. From that moment, I was like, rich people, because I even saw how the staff treated her. Like, they'll walk in with little water in a straw and be like, are you okay? Da-da-da. And I'm just like, do you like people fussing about you like this? And I didn't think she actually enjoyed people fussing over her. So I think that's why she liked me, is because I was just like, she'd walk in, I'd be like, what do you want today? Like, I was just being normal with her. And, I mean, it must be hard when you're rich. You've got all these.
I think so. I mean, I I have no idea, but from what I've seen in my time,
Mm,
I don't know. I'm from Brooklyn, so Biggie Smalls once said, "More money, more problems,"
yeah,
right? And
yeah,
literally, I think that's true. The
mm,
bills, right? Tax bracket,
mm,
people that you have, trusting people,
yeah,
like, what is it their cost, right?
yeah,
Um, it's very interesting, I think, the concept of being rich. Money, though, should not scare people. I want to put that in this interview. I think it's the use of money that makes money bad, right? Or how people go about using it. Um,
yeah,
but I don't think having it is bad,
yeah,
especially if you have self-control and discipline,
yeah,
right? Because I used to look at the rich through the lens of like, oh man, all rich people are pretty bad, and
mm,
because you look at world hunger, the homeless, you're like, oh, these problems could be easily solved
yeah,
with these people having billions and billions of dollars, right? But I'm not in their shoes to see what decisions they have to make in life and who they're tallying with and what's going on behind that door.
yeah.
So I can only speak so much about things that I'm not fully privy to, right?
Hmm.
So,
Yeah,
um,
she
go
had
ahead.
like a $250 million super yacht. And even we had conversations about how bad the world was. So I'm like, so what are you doing about it? Like, and and I know she had her struggles. She'd had a lot of friends that had just used her for her money and stuff. So yeah, with that, you've got people being jealous of you, taking advantage of you. And this is why I don't think anyone's got it together, is because there's challenges wherever you go in your life. If you're a millionaire, if you're not, like, but we
Mm,
just, I wish we could just see each other on a soul level. Like, I wish we could see energy. instead of, race and color and money. And I just wish we could just see souls or and energy. It would just be so much easier for all
It
of
would.
us. Mm.
It would. You know what I tell people sometimes is, I think I just said this the other day. I was like, people see me, but they don't see me. You
Yeah,
know, like a lot of people just see me. Some
yeah,
people actually see me. They can see me. They're like, oh, I see you. Like what's inside of you, I see it. You
mm-hmm.
know. But some people, yeah, it's interesting. So I could definitely relate when you say if we could see each other without the human flesh, you know, that we
Yeah,
have, right?
yeah.
What would that look like? Like, how would we go about interacting with one another? I think that
Mm.
would be interesting to say the least.
It would
Um,
be a beautiful world. But we're getting there. I mean, I've got a whole lot of soul family, and I can feel the connection with you too. So it's like, it's just cool. We're all little lights around the world.
Mary, I wanted to say thank you. Yeah, this experience has been great. I love this conversation. The flow of it, yeah, just amazing.
Mhm.
Um, and I enjoyed connecting with you. And thank you for taking the time. I don't know what time is it over there in New Zealand, but thank you for taking the time to, come on and share your story. For real. I know the time difference sometimes can be a little bit much for some people depending on their schedule, right? So,
Oh, it's
um,
fine. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
yeah,
It's
you're
good.
welcome. No problem. Listen, human cannot exist without people like yourself that are willing to come on, right? People like, oh, thank you for the platform. I'm like, no, well, thank you. Because
It's all a
I, c- I can't exist. This can't exist without you deciding to come on and interact with the platform, right?
yeah.
So, um, so we have the story of what inspired you to leave the life of luxury or what is seemingly luxury, but let's talk about the illusion of such. What is your take on that after being in the position that you were in, working around what people, some 250 million people with $250 million yachts?
Mm.
Um, what, what, I don't know how to describe this question, but I know, I guess, how do we dispel that illusion of luxury? Because I often tell people, believe it or not, a lot of people, and this is a pretty bold statement that I'm going to say here, but I feel like a lot of people are what I like to call luxurious slaves in a weird way. It's just you become a slave to the money.
Yeah.
Um, and then you complain about what you have to go through and the people you have to interact with
Mm-hmm.
for the money, right? But you can change that if you're willing to sacrifice your luxuries and move into a situation that's more organic, right? Or better fitting for you because the way I see it, money has made it to where people just do a wide range of things just to have money. And yeah, it's very interesting. But I would like to hear from your side, from your perspective.
What was the question? The
So
main.
the question is, when it comes to the illusion of luxury, number one, what does that look like?
Mm-hmm.
I guess, and I just want you to kind of dispel that for a lot of people who will be watching this interview because you've dealt with a lot of people who lived a certain lifestyle, um, and
Yeah.
you find
But
out that they weren't
I think
as happy. Hmm?
what we talked about before is like the view. What's your view of success?
Mm.
So, like, what's your view of success?
Are you
I'm asking.
asking me?
Yeah.
Um, so I'm caught in between a rock and a hard two rocks in a hard place when it comes to that. So basically, I'm still working to move out of that westernized version of success and I'm reestablishing a new version of success. My version of success is to impact people on a global scale.
Mm, awesome.
That's my version of success. I'm not, and that doesn't mean I have a team I have to pay, right? So I'm not saying that I don't want to bring in a certain amount of money, right,
Mm,
for human, but I also see human more as not even like a business entity. I see it more as a community, a platform for people to come on and,
yeah.
really share and connect. But another version of success that I do see is me traveling. the world, to bring the
Cool.
interviews and the person. I think that's the height that I want to go to.
Yeah.
Uh, Whatever I guess that will cost, like in terms of finances, that's what I want to achieve, right? But I don't set out, even though I've been told human could be $1 billion idea, depending on how it's executed. And I see that clear as day.
Yeah.
But that's not necessarily what I'm doing it for, right? The monetary gain of things. But
Yeah.
the reason why I say I'm caught in a rock and a hard place is because on the flip side of that, it's the societal pressure, right? And I know you've dealt with that. Just like you said, somebody said that you failed when you didn't get paid enough money for what it was, or they felt like you didn't get paid enough money for what it was you
Mm.
were building. So we live in a hyper, uh, America's pretty hype on everything, hyper sexualized, hyper finances, just everything is hyped up,
Mm.
in my opinion. And so what happens is I deal with the societal pressure of like, oh, Troy, you have all these great ideas and you could be a millionaire. Why aren't you doing this and why aren't you doing that? You know? And so sometimes my brain drifts back into that headspace a little bit too. It's like, well, what would the monetary piece of success look like for me? When do I say no?
Yeah.
Right? What is that? Like, okay, this is where I want to go. This is the limit. Because
Mm.
certain levels of success come with certain prices
Yeah.
that are you can't revoke after you cross a certain line, right?
Mm.
So
Yeah.
it's a little complex to me, but
Mm, it's cool. No, it's really good. And I've got friends who are going to be millionaires. Like they love money and they love teaching people the good side of money. I remember going to like another woman's thing that was like a money thing, and they're like, write down what you want to make every month. And I wrote down, I just want to be happy. Like, I just want happiness. Um, but I believe if you're doing what you love and you're radiating it out to the world, it's going to come back to you. And it can come back in that energy or money. So, like, I mean, I would love a world without money. I think who decided to put little coins on this earth, on this planet,
mm,
and give
mm,
value. And then we don't have value. Like, the money has more value. Um, So
mm,
I'm also in between a rock and a hard place with my belief of money, because I'm like, I'd love it if there wasn't any. I'd love to just trade energy and trade our jobs and what we do. And maybe this guy comes and fixes my plumbing and I'll do a breathwork session for him, or, things like that. It would just be really,
bartering,
yeah,
returning back to bartering. Yes,
part
yes,
of
I would. You know what? I resonate with that. I resonate with that also. You know, now don't get me wrong. I do like nice things. You know, I have a little watch here. I There's things that I do like, but I don't know, man. I even want to, move overseas, to be honest. I want to live somewhere. People are like, oh, why would you want to, leave America? Like, what is wrong with you? I'm like, well, I just want to try life where I feel like I think one of my versions of success is to find an authentic community of people who
Mhm.
genuinely,
Yeah,
I believe, like accept you for who you are and really like respect you, right? Because a lot of the interactions I feel like I have are like very transactional. It's very like, what can you do for me, and how are we gonna get this done? You know, what can
yeah,
I get out of this? So,
yeah,
um, I just, yeah,
yeah.
it could be a little much, right?
Yeah, I think everyone craves and coming back to the village, and just I'd love to go live in a village in Africa. How cool would it be just being around villages, and you care about each other and go hunting. I don't know, it would just be fun, I thought.
Right, live freely, right? And
Yeah,
then also, I do want to go somewhere where the village literally assists us in raising the kid, right? Like, I think that concept, it was,
yeah.
back in the day, they'll talk about, hey, it takes a village to raise a
Hmm.
kid, right? So,
Hmm.
if we could just return, I feel like back to that point to a degree. I don't want to, I don't know, what evolution would look like, for us, but yeah, just trying to get back to like the roots, right? While we're still evolving, I think it's good. And then brings a different question, right? And I want to hear your answer to this, which is, what does evolution look like for us now, you know,
To
as humans?
devolve, truly were meant to be. Um, Take everything back that was stolen, like our spirit. Because I don't know where your take is, but I agree that there could be 10 people that control the world with their input, the richest men in the world, you know what I'm talking about, eh?
I know exactly what you're talking about.
But I mean, for me, I wish I had a time machine and I could just go back and wipe everyone out, but I can't. Like start it all, get it all where it started. Um, but I don't know if that's what I was talking about.
But I do have another question. What do you think in the stage that we're at now? Because you spoke about de-evolution, the process of devolving. Um,
Yeah,
how do you think we can evolve on an individual scale? And do you think it's possible for us to evolve as a collective, or is
yeah.
technology?
I believe it's happening. I believe we are evolving in consciousness and awareness. And yeah, it's like people slowly you can see people kind of waking up from the sleeps that they were in. I do a lot of sound healing as well.
Hmm.
Quite interesting. So I play these sound bowls and do sounds when people are resting. And the frequency that I use is, sorry, I'm just have to get this right, 435. And that's creation. That's like perfect unity. And if you were to put like sand on a speaker and it played this sound, the the frequency of 435, it turns into like the flower of life, the geometrical shapes and things. Now, secular music had been changed to 440, which is a little bit higher, but a little bit makes you feel uncomfortable. So all the secular music also, I don't know if you follow like about the Rothschilds who also own all the banks and that. Yeah, so he started this and he was like he was like, let's make the frequency off so that everyone feels a little bit uneasy, but also it keeps you in this hypnotic state. And I don't know about you, but when I first started listening to like secular music when I was young and watching video clips, like I'd sit there and watch video clips on Saturday mornings, Chris Brown and all those, and it's cool, but I just remember just like sitting there watching it, being like, I want to be a dancer. Oh, I'm not good enough. Oh, I'm never going to be like that. And I'd start to compare myself and get into this like state of like almost not good enough feeling. You know what I mean, eh?
I know exactly what you're talking about. Hold on, I want to piggyback off of that. So, because when I got into secular music, I got into hip hop.
Yeah.
And so you hear these stories, and especially now, I think back in the day it was more relatable because I can see what was going on in front of me. I knew some people that was living a certain lifestyle at that time.
Mm,
But as hip hop progressed into rap and then rap, a whole bunch of rappers, and especially in this modern age, come out and they tell stories that they're truly not living. And
mm,
then you, especially when it comes to being flashy, let's use Drake for an example. He'll probably be like, yeah, I just got out this Lambo, went into this club, dealt with this woman and this. And then you're like, well, if you're not secure in who you are as a person, you're like, well, how can I live
yeah,
like this too, you know?
that's it.
I think the greatest example that I have of that was I was going to Catholic school
Uh,
when I was younger, right? And 50 Cent had just came out, and trust me,
mm,
everybody wanted to live, everybody wanted to get rich or die trying in that moment, right? So I do understand the frequency being off. You would have liked the campfire session that I had called Sonic Alchemy,
mm,
where we talked about how frequencies relate to the human body.
mm,
I might do a part two of
yeah.
that. But, huh?
I'll go watch that.
Oh, you can't.
Oh,
Unfortunately, that
oh,
we got hacked on Instagram
oh
like
no.
a year and a half ago,
Uh,
and that was part of the content that they wound up taking out before I could salvage it. But
mm,
that's why I'm thinking about doing it all over again. Because it was really good, really, really good. But when you talk about the frequencies of harmony, that's why I'm very careful about the music I listen to,
mm,
right? Because I understand what it's doing on a subconscious level to a degree, right? And I think that's important for other people to understand. But back to what you was telling us, I wanted you to continue down that road. Also, the earth itself has a frequency.
mm.
So when you were talking about, do you know what that frequency is? Because I would like to be educated. I forgot.
I've been told it was the bowls, which is the 435, but I might have got mixed up in between that. I can get back to you on that. The
Mhm,
earth resonates in different frequencies, though. There's a shaman residence app you can get, and you can see how it changes.
mhm.
Um, so it can fluctuate, but I think it's around the 400 mark. I could be wrong though.
Interesting.
Yeah, but if for ourselves, so we are vibrating too. So if you're vibrating in guilt, shame, or fear, it's on lower on the spectrum. It's 20 hertz. Guilt is the lowest. Then shame and fear is 50 hertz, and then you go up. And no, the crossover is from pride into courage, which is quite cool. So
Mm,
it's about 80 to 90, and then you go up even more to enlightenment, which is 800 plus. So the higher frequency that you are, and you can feel it off people. You know when someone's in a great loving frequency when they walk in the room. You can just feel it. If even you could feel it on your parents, you could feel if they were in a bad mood or if they were in a
hmm
good before they said anything. You could just feel that energy, and that's also what we do in the breath work is visualizing someone that you love, that you admire, and their energy that they carry, and just start to try and kind of embody what they've got and kind of let that radiate out of you instead of, the guilt or the fear or the longing for money or the needing to strive kind of energy.
mm.
Mm.
What do you think is a healthy dose of like striving? Like, what does that look like? Because we all have a drive to be something. We all aspire to be
Yeah.
something, right? Um, but we also, I find that nowadays a lot of us are running on a wheel, in my opinion. A lot of people I know have two jobs. And in my
Mm.
brain, I'm like, well, how do you have time to live? Like, you know, part of being a human being is also living, right? So,
Yeah.
what does that look like
The
for you?
world's hard, so I have a lot of anger, like righteous anger around that someone has to work two jobs. Do they have to survive, or are they just doing it because they want more money?
Most people right now, in my
Surviving.
opinion, is surviving, yeah,
Yeah,
especially here in America, from what I've seen.
because it's like also give me my time machine and I'll go back. Go back with my bow and
Don't
arrow.
worry,
Oh,
I got you.
Robin Hood. Yeah, I don't know. It's such a sad time, but
It is.
if everyone in the world stopped paying taxes right now, just one day, just and they all said we're not doing this anymore. It might, it could change, but everyone's too scared to do that.
Mm.
Um,
Why do you think they're
I,
scared to do it? Oof.
again, well, it's a system. It's no one. A lot of people are afraid of change.
A lot of people are afraid of change. I think it's also losing, like I said, I think it's also luxury,
Yeah.
that ideation of luxury and like upholding that. All right. So, but
Going back to
here
your
we,
question with the driving one, sorry. Um,
yeah, the striving.
Imagine that there's a race, right? And there's people in a race and they have to run from here to here. And
Hmm.
there's the ones that are scrambling and they're like tripping over and they're like, I've got to get there in front of everyone. And then there's the one who stands in their power and they just focus on the end. And they know who they are and they just run and they don't look around. That's probably the difference. So they're striving in their power and the other ones are striving in what's everyone else doing and like, oh, I have to go this way and copy them. I have to go copy them. And that's to me how I see striving in a bad way. It's just kind of like feeding, like trying to climb everyone else's ladder. But why don't you just start building your own ladder? Get to the top of your own ladder instead of these people's ladder.
Mm. I love the way you said that because we live in a day and age where comparison is
Yeah.
extremely heavy through social media, you know? So thank you for addressing that. I really do, without you even saying comparison, but I understood
Mm,
exactly what you were talking about, looking around to see what everyone else is doing,
yeah.
and then instead of focusing on your own self and where you need to go in life, which I think is important, you know? I think
Mm,
comparison can also be healthy to a degree, right?
yeah.
Comparison can be healthy if you want to strive to obtain maybe the level that that person's at, and you aspire to be somewhat like them, but still be yourself. Taking away the good qualities, right?
Mm.
This question is going to be good. What is the best way to detox the mind, in your opinion, from mass programming?
Oh,
Ooh,
oh, you know I'm going to say breath work.
I know you're going to say breathwork. That's fine.
Yeah. I I think I mean, social media doesn't help, does it? But if you use it right, it can. But I think just finding your center and finding what you want to do and kind of like turning off, because, oh, how do I explain it? You can look around at what everyone's doing
Hmm.
and you can kind of get off track with that. But if you actually go within and sit quietly with yourself, take some breaths and be like, what do I want? And is this belief system that I have to be successful in this way, is that from me or is that from my parents or is that from my friends, or is that from a video clip that I watched? And I had to have the flashy cars and have the great body. Is it from them telling me or do I actually want that for myself? So I think getting quiet and being with yourself is probably the best way to deprogram and clear your mind.
Mm.
Mm.
Truly listening to what is it that you want.
Yeah, it's that simple, eh?
Mm.
It's that simple.
Since you've been through a transition in your life from working in the field of makeup and with movies, right? Um, what was it like to go through a metamorphosis in your life? I kind of got that question from your Instagram page itself.
So I changed
Um,
my whole life. Is that what you mean? Eh?
hmm.
Changing my, yeah. um, there were a few friends who I hadn't talked to in a long time, and they reached out during the pandemic stuff and all the mess that happened there. And I remember some talking to me in a really shocking way because I was this new person, and I remember them being like telling me what to do, and I was like, you can't do this anymore to me. I'm a totally different person. So even like the other people were shocked as well. But it was it was hard at times because I was like, is this who I am? Or is it that person? Or is it that person? And we have all these versions of ourselves. But the more I found who I was through my healing and things like that, it was kind of like no one could say anything to me anymore. And it showed me how far I'd come because at that time I was probably going around getting advice from all these people, from anyone I could, because I had no internal system. I had no connection with my intuition. So I was just trying to like feed it everyone else's, what should I do? So the transition was cool because I finally got to connect with my intuition and be secure in my choices, and then no one could tell me what to do. It's really cool actually looking back and being like, wow, we can really expand ourselves when we get rid of all the fear.
Mm, I love it.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. How do you how did you show love to yourself during this stage? Because I know there was dark times during it because you're coming to realizations as you're going through the stage in life, right? So what was it like to show yourself care and love yourself?
Let myself mourn my old self's death. Like, I kind of had to let that whole version of me die. I lost a lot of friends, and even ones that I really loved kind of turned their back on me, and they had this whole other narrative going. And I had to get to a place where I was like, um, that's their business. Whatever they're saying about me is none of my business what they're saying about me.
Mm,
So to like, even that's another construct, right? It's just worrying about what people think of you and staying so secure in yourself and going, actually, I'm not a bad person. They might think I am, but I'm not. And I know that I'm not. And that's the most important part. And I have to do what I have to do for myself, even though they might be offended I'm not around anymore. I had to kind of stand in my power of that and just be like, no, I am secure in myself. I'm not a bad person. And whatever's being said is in their brain and in the universe. Like if you took, this is weird too, but if you took our brains away in our body and you'd see a thought just like vibrating, and then you took the earth away, it would just be a little thought in space vibrating. So their
when you
thought
said that, go ahead.
is in space in the middle of nowhere, like, do you know what I mean?
No, I know
I
what you
don't
mean.
care about that. It's not even a real thing.
There's a book I think you'll like. It's called Happiness is the Way by
Yeah,
Dwayne W. Dyer. I don't know if you've heard of the book.
no,
If
no.
not, great read. But one of the things that he speaks about is our attachment to our reputation and
Mm-hmm.
the judgment that comes with you being attached to your reputation based on how other people perceive you too, right? I think yeah, that's well, what is your take on that in terms of your reputation, right? Like, because obviously we all have a reputation
Yeah,
of sorts, right? Like,
yeah,
you still run a business right now with sound
yeah.
healing, breath work. And so, as much as we want to say that we don't care about other people's opinions,
Mm-hmm.
to a degree, we
Yeah,
have we kind of have to. Do
yeah,
you agree with that?
yeah,
Because like human, right? If I
yeah, yeah. If you did something bad, yeah,
yeah,
no.
yo,
But
right?
yeah, I mean, I'm human, so I've done some crappy things too. Like I probably talked about my business partner behind her back and went back to her, and I'm the bad guy and things like that. But for me now, I know that I took all the necessary steps to know that I'm a good person. I sent her messages to say sorry. I cleared up what I could. She unfortunately didn't have the capacity to. So still don't know what's being said about me in my reputation of that world. But like, stand firm. I know that I did all I could, and yeah, unfortunately, some people just aren't ready to face their things, I guess.
Mm,
Um, but I know what you mean is keeping your reputation, and that also comes with standing secure in yourself. So things can be said about the most best person in the world, and if they know that they haven't done anything wrong, then it's just going to get around. But it's like, it's another, yeah, I know what you mean. It's just don't be a dick.
I
Like,
like it. I like
people living
it.
their lives and doing what they want to do. And also, you don't know anyone else's journey and what they've gone through. So, but I stuck it out with my business partner for 7 years, and I knew all of her background and I knew all the struggles that she had and that, but it got to a point where I was starting to break from trying to fix other people. So you can't,
Can't
people got to
pour
take,
from an empty cup.
yeah, you got to take responsibility for your own life too. And I think that comes in reputation, because it's like, if you can't go and heal those parts, then don't put it on everyone else.
Mm,
That's a
very
part
well
of
said.
it too, isn't it? Because it's like,
It
just
is.
take responsibility. And,
How has now to the main part that I know you would love talking about. How has breathwork changed your life?
I think you know.
Yeah,
um,
yeah, I do. But
yeah,
for those,
really good. Like I was just always busy, so I never looked within. And that's what I kind of took from my dad too. And you can tell busy people don't want to stop, because they're just like, I've got to do this, I've got to do that, got to do that. And like, what about resting and being there? And they're like, nah, no time for that. So I used to try and meditate, and I'd sit there and be like, I've got way more important things to do than this.
mm,
And that's what we call the monkey mind. So, and your ego mind, which is your default mode network, and it sits in between your two brains, connects your brain here. And this is where it all stems from, is I do this, Mary is this type of person, I eat this food, da, 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 and it's always going, and it's your default. It's like your default mode.
mm,
They call the ego center. And it's good to have, because it does keep you, it keeps you safe, and it keeps protecting you and things like that. But when I did breath work, it shut up for once in my life. It was like gone. All the noise was gone. And I
mm,
was like, oh. And there was this one moment where you feel like connected to your soul. You do the certain breath holds, and you connect to your soul, and it's like, oh, this is who I am. And you start to remember who you were and who you are and why you're here. And
mm,
it just hits you in this, they call it the bliss state, or like the deepest state of meditation. And that's why monks go up to the top of mountains and meditate, because the oxygen's lower. So when you do these breath holds, you breathe out and hold your breath, and it's just CO2 in your body, and
mm.
it's like a state of calm in your body. It's very hard to explain. But once you try it, you'll
You'll get
know
it.
what I mean. And also, it's very healing on your cells as well. It's like intermittent fasting. So you're kind of striving your cells of oxygen for a little bit, depriving them, so that when you take your next breath, you can kind of energize every cell properly, and your cells can heal on a cellular level. Um,
Mm,
that's kind of my ethos now, is that if someone's sick or got disease and things like that, it's like, how's your breathing, first of all? And then how's your cell health? Because if you're breathing, like if you squeeze your fist like this, and then you can see all that blood flows all trapped in the red bits.
mm-hmm.
If you have tension in your body, you're breathing into these parts that are like this, and they're not letting the blood flow through. So if you have pain in your body, the best thing you can do is relax. That's a martial arts thing as well. If they have pain in their body, they just relax it and it will heal, because you want the blood flow to get through. And I used to have this huge neck pain here. I'd go to physio. It was for years I had it. The makeup didn't help too, actually, because I was holding my body weird. But as soon as I did breathwork, it healed that. My migraines went away. I had migraines where I'd lose my vision and have to get injections. They went away. That was all linked to stress. So breathwork hasn't helped me just mentally. It's helped my physical health and my body. I'm fitter. Like, I can walk up the mountain over there and I don't get puffed because I've learned how to breathe and use my diaphragm and use my power from my diaphragm instead of, I notice a lot of people when they exercise mouth breathe into their neck. You know, they're all like, and I can't, when I walk up the mountain, I count how many people are mouth breathing, and it's always this one nose breathing the whole way.
Mhm.
Everyone's putting all their energy into their neck and shoulders and trying to hold their body up with their neck and shoulders. And it's like, you know, you have a whole core here that can like hold all your organs up, hey? Like, and I've stopped a few, you know, older gals. I stopped a few of them and I've gone, hey, you know, if you nose breathe, it will be easier. And they're like, I've walked up this mountain for years. And I'm like, okay, stay there. Like, I get really, like, this, people just don't really know, I think, that they've been doing something wrong.
I, I I like what you said there, and I want to hone in on that. It's that people don't really want to know.
Mm.
Like, why do you think people, not even just about breath work, but just about certain truths, why do you think people don't want to know? Do you think the reality is too much to withstand? Especially if it's going to help you.
Ignorance is bliss. It's nice. It's just, mm,
That is going to be your thing. Yeah.
that's
Mm.
it.
That was a deep one. That was a good one. It wasn't as light as the other ones. Um, but yes, I do. Yeah, I have to agree. I was like, do you truly think ignorance is bliss? But from what I said earlier about the fragments of truth and kind of just dealing with that alone, um, I could see how ignorance could definitely be bliss for sure.
Yeah.
I see you are a trauma-informed breath facilitator,
Mhm.
which is quite the mouthful. Um,
Yeah.
how does trauma impact our breathing?
Oh, so many ways. So, could get quite heavy here. So, if you, for example, I'll just tell my story. So, my dad was lovely, but he had a lot of stuff growing up with his parents, and he didn't feel accepted and loved. And his breathing was really like always really shallow up here. It still is. Um, and he would get physical when he was angry with us. Not like to the point of punching, but he'd like rip our ears and things like that, bang our heads together. And it was just his default thing, which I think he was raised like. So for me, it was quite a traumatic thing, being a kid who couldn't be a kid. So I held my breath around my dad a lot. And I held my breath around people that reminded me of my dad or people that were intimidating at work. And I just noticed the patterning of my breathing with certain people, with my mother-in-law. Just, you know, people who can intimidate me. I'll like I clench up my body. I'll
Mm,
hold my breath. I'll dim my light around them as well because I don't want to show them my true self because I didn't feel safe to. Um, so it can really impact your breathing. And in a lot of my sessions, I'll go back to that house with the younger self and even face parents, and I'll notice people's breathing will either stop or speed up.
mm,
And I teach them to take back their breath, to take back their nervous system. Because if you are in control of your breath, your nervous system's at a lot more peace. But if you're not, your nervous system's tight. And
mm,
when we talk about nervous system, it's part of your brain. So like your brain is your nervous system. Your nervous system remembers everything, even can feel other people's energy. So if somebody walked in the room that you didn't like right now, your whole nervous system would like, right? It just gets funny.
Clench up.
And if somebody walks into the room that you love and you just know that you're accepted by them, your nervous system's, hey, like it's easier. So yeah, just our breath, like instead of saying how are you, we should be like, how's your breathing? how are you breathing? Because
And the,
if, yeah, you know, we've got a breath when we have to go do a race. We get pumped up. We've got a breath when we're going to do public speak. And it's not a bad thing. It's just, it's getting us ready for the new thing. And a lot of people with anxiety have a breath that's like this, right? They can't get in control of their breath. They don't know the power of just slowing it down and going, the oxygen's always going to be there. And I can link that even back to their first breath. So we can do sessions where you go back to your birth and you go back to your first breath. And if you didn't feel safe in the environment, a lot of people may have had to wear, you know, like oxygen masks as they were born. They come into a white, stark room. They come out of this dark womb and they come into this bright world. And there's doctors patting them down. And, you know, that's their connection with their first breath. So it can be quite emotional for some people. Like, did you feel safe with your family? Did you feel safe in your mum's womb? Did you feel safe with your dad? And coming back to like that first breath that you took and your relationship with your breath. To take your last breath, you know, like in between that, do you live in those? Do you live in the moment? Do you use the breath as a reminder that you're on this earth and you're meant to be?
wow.
Mm-hmm. I can't help it.
I know, I know, I know. But just wow, very, very well said. You know, and something that it makes me have to look inward at myself. You know, who would have ever known breathing, the thing that we overlook, I think, in our daily lives, could be explained in such an impactful way.
Mm.
On to another part of your specialty. I wanted to return back to brainwave therapy and ask you, how does that help the mind? And please educate us as to what is brainwave therapy.
Cool. So we use binaural beats in the sessions, and it's really good with the headphones. But what it does is it connects both sides of the brain. So, you know, when you used to do that tapping, you rub your tummy and you tap your head. You know, you do it. So when
Yeah.
you put your brain together, because it's both sides of the brain working in unison. So with binaural beats, we've got one here with a sound, you know, we've got one sound on this ear and a different sound on this ear. And what your brain tries to do is link it together. So it
Hmm.
becomes yeah, so just getting everything together in that creates the brain waves that you need. So we have brain waves. There's the top beta, which is like most of the Western world's in it all the time. And then you've got down the bottom, you've got like your delta, which is REM sleep, and your theta. And those are your like sleeping ones. So when I do breath work, this study was actually done with the technique that I use at NASA. And
At
they
NASA?
yeah, at NASA. He went to NASA and had it studied. So the brain waves they found just would lower down, sometimes even into delta, but you're awake. And the beauty of this is, you know, when you go to sleep, you kind of drift into this just before you go to sleep, you drift into this like creative kind of mind, which you can get ideas. Or when you're in the shower as well, you start to get kind of like creative mind. So doing the brainwave therapy that we do, the kind of the goal is to get into your creative mind. And I think like sorry, I'll go back to NASA. So they did this study as well, and they found that all the brainwaves met at one point of the breath hold. And the NASA people were like, whoa, we've never seen this happen, except for one time when someone was recalling meeting Mother Teresa. So it was like a profound experience that had happened in their life that they were going back and like remembering. But also a lot of these profound moments happen in these breathwork sessions where people meet, you know, their higher self, or they go back and meet their inner child, and they kind of clean up the traumas and things like that. And it relaxes the brain tension as well, doing all these things. So brain, yeah, working with the brain waves, but then also working with the nervous system, the body, the mind, and the soul as a whole. That's what somatic work is called. So working with the somatic body, it's just working with everything as a whole and kind of healing it all together and softening it and relaxing it so I can heal.
What do you think is the best way for somatic work, I guess, to be done? Or yeah, I'm trying to search for the question here because I do want to understand, in your experience, what was it like when everything came together, the mind, body, and soul, through the work that you were doing?
Oh, it's just, there were times where I was laying there, and they call it bliss, is when you don't think you need to breathe, you just lay there and you're not thinking about your breathing. You're not thinking about anything else. You're just being, like you're just being here and being in the moment, in this blissful moment of peace, I guess. It's just peaceful.
Mm.
And it's like you're a high, but you're not. Like you're in this natural high.
Oh, talking about being high. So earlier you spoke about is it ayahuasca? What's the name?
Yeah, ayahuasca.
Okay, what
Oh,
is that?
okay.
Just
So
yeah,
ayahuasca is a root plant from a tree in Peru, in the Amazon. You can come through. um, yeah, so it's a plant that they'll go and do in ceremony with shamans, and they'll kind of like go and have profound experiences. I've had friends who have had severe depression, and they've gone and it's helped them just one session. Mostly it shows you where you try and control everything in your life or where your fear is. But it's DMT. I think DMT is in that. And that's what's created when you do breath work too, within you. So it's all like the same kind of thing. All of it's waking up your pineal gland, which is your creative mind.
hmm hmm Indeed. I've actually done dimethyltryptamine before. It was
Oh, how was
very
that?
interesting journey. Uh,
Yeah.
quick story, I did it in the wrong setting. I was inside of a a club in Brooklyn when I did it. I was part
Oh,
of a rave scene. That's how I got the gauges.
yeah.
So I was partying pretty hard at the time and I stumbled upon it and oh, it definitely changed my life. At least for
Mm,
that night, for sure.
right.
But it was the wrong way to experience it, right? Like I learned from other people like you're supposed to be in like a really easygoing setting, more like nature based. And I was around 200 plus people
Lots of
in
energy.
the back of a club. Yeah, it was. But when I came back, wow, I was amazed. I'm not gonna lie, I was amazed. I was amazed.
Mm,
But I think I wanted to lean this more towards what is your, how do you exercise spirituality in your life? And what does that mean to you outside of, obviously we talked about your past with the religious context of things. What does that look like for you? Because I consider myself to be rogue, right? I don't fall into any specific denomination of thought or school of thought. So I wanted to see what that looks like for you.
Yeah, same. I don't have any uniform structure because then I don't want to get bored of the same prayer every day, or feeling like I have to do it. But for me, gratitude. So thanking God for my family, the things that I like. Um, and if I do spiral into a kind of a negative thought, I'll try and come back to gratitude or come back to what I'm thankful for or what I can even do to better myself if I've done something bad or I've done something I'm not proud of myself for, things like that. But also just having compassion for myself and others.
Compassion for yourself, that is very important.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we oftentimes get into this flow where we kind of talk down to ourselves because we want better for ourselves, but the moment has came and went, and it's best if we at least show ourselves some love and work on improving, right? I think is a good mixture, rather than falling into this downward spiral of just negative self-talk,
Mm-hmm.
right? Funny thing is, I have a book that's right in front of me. It's called The Power of Positive Self-Talk. So,
Mm-hmm.
there is definitely a power when you speak to yourself in a positive manner, rather than talking down on yourself.
Yeah.
But um, oh, funny question I have for you. Have you ever witnessed two people compete for who is more spiritual than one another? I saw your series on Instagram, which I thought was hilarious. And I was wondering if that was inspired by by something
Yeah,
you've seen in real time.
not that extreme, but yeah, there can be that. I mean, we're here, right?
We are human.
People just compete all the time, and I mean, there is a healthy competing, and I love that too. But also, I'm just like, I don't know, like I'll notice that some of my sessions, people be like, I've done 5 minutes in the ice bath before, and I'm like, cool. Like it's just there's always someone trying to just like push the boundaries of the healing things as well. And it's like, it just doesn't make sense to me because I'm like, are we trying to get away from that? Yeah. And I've probably done it too without knowing.
I think we all have in one sense or another, right?
Yeah.
Because we're human, right?
Yeah.
We
We
definitely
all
compare to one another.
good and we all just want to be seen. And like, even Beyonce wants to be heard. She sings, like, even the Prime Minister wants to be heard. Like, everyone does.
Everyone does. And if they don't want to be heard, they at least want to be seen,
Yeah.
at the very least, right? You want people want to know that you know that they exist.
Yeah. That's it. But then what is the point of being on Earth if we're not seen? So
Hmm.
I
I
love
wanted
your
to,
pictures.
huh?
I love your
You said
freaking.
what? Oh, oh. Yeah, yeah. You, there was one where I used to be like up close to the camera, like, just very quiet, like really close. But I was like, let me actually get my at least whatever half a body is being shown here on the screen in full. Oof, love this though. How has your experience been being a mother of two children?
Yeah, challenging, fun, tiring, beautiful. There's all the moments. Do you have kids?
No, I do not.
Uh,
I do want kids, but yeah. I'm just really particular
Yeah,
about that situation.
fair
Huh?
enough. Fair enough.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, my kids are great. My son is very loud and outgoing, and he's going to be a protester because everything we ask him to do is like, nah, and then he'll protest if he doesn't want to do something. So he's got that leader in him, and then my daughter's really shy, so they're like totally different. So we have that cool dynamic. But it's been really cool for me. It's been really challenging and cool. And my son's my greatest teacher. Actually, both of them are, and they know it. Like, and I'm teaching them breath work and just to try and like, especially my son, he gets anxiety, so um, yeah, it's kind of helping him to slow down a bit too. But
Mm.
I had him in my belly when I was in my chronic stress state. I don't know if I talked about this with you,
No,
but
you could go.
um, he, I was living in Auckland then, and I was driving around like a nutter. I wouldn't stop, and then he was born, and his heart rate was crazy fast. His breathing was really fast, and I didn't know anything back then and about what I know now. And the nurses were like, his heart rate's really quick, but his bloods are fine. Like, we don't know what's wrong. And now I look back, I'm like, I know what's wrong. He was in my body. Like, he was feeding off my energy. And at that time, I bet I was taking like 20 breaths a minute, probably plus. I wasn't breathing properly. I wasn't stopping. I was renovating a house, then working, and like I just didn't stop. So I do blame myself in a way for that, but hopefully he can start healing with me, which he is slowly doing. He's just a bit younger. So he's nearly
Beautiful.
7.
I like the way you said he could start healing with me. It's like, you
Yeah.
came into the world, by me, and I know I wasn't in the best state I could be at that moment, but I want to help fix not only myself, but help assist you in getting to a good space before you get into like your teens and your early 20s and things of that nature. I think that's really good.
Yeah.
Cool. Um, how do you handle the stress that comes with being a parent?
Breathing. Some days, if they're having fights and tantrums, I do resort to like, be quiet. And then I'm like, this isn't working. So sometimes I'll just sit on the ground and breathe. I'll just sit down and like, and they're like, they look at me like I'm weird. But then eventually they come and join me. So they're going to mimic everything I do. They
Yes.
may as well mimic my practice. So I know a lot of mums go into their room and breathe, or like go into their room and meditate, but do it in front of them. And if you can do it in front of them, that's like the greatest teacher, because they're loud and they're fighting, and you're just sitting there going, and they're like, they sit down and do it. It's just cute.
Lovely. I love the
Mm.
way you said that they mimic you. They do.
Yeah,
Kids are going to mimic everything that you do.
yeah.
That's so cool, man. That was great advice, by the way, too. For someone who's not yet a parent.
But
Um,
you're getting,
that is, huh?
you're getting ready.
I am getting ready. I am getting ready. I wanted to say that I do look forward to being a parent. I just I would want to raise my kid um, in just a different country altogether, most
Yeah,
likely, you know.
yeah.
So that's why it's being, I talked to my mother and she was like, when am I going to have a grandchild? And I was like, it's going to be a little while from now, probably another 2 to 3 years until that, happens.
Mm.
Um, but moving forward, what is one thing you learned from your mother that has helped you in motherhood?
Oh, so my mum had 5 kids, and she was always very patient with us. So because I kind of was born with my dad's temperament in a way. There's parts of me when my kids fight and stuff, I just want to do what my dad did. It's in my nervous system to do that, because that's all I knew, kind of, to be raised by my dad, was to just be like, stop it, you know, like. But I'm starting to learn to hold back from that part, and be like more like my mum. However, I did have a lot of resentment towards my mum, because she would kind of allow my dad to do things like that, and she wasn't strong enough to say no. So having that balance of like the patience, but also the boundaries. She didn't really have the boundaries with us. Is like, I learned both from my mum and dad, so I've kind of brought the two together. So I've got the boundaries and then the patience and the compassion, and I'm just doing the best I can with that, I guess. I'm thankful for both sides. Yeah.
What does that look like? Having patience with boundaries.
So when kids kind of push your boundaries, you can just say, like, if my son comes up to me and starts hitting me with something, I'll be like, please stop that, I don't like it. And just talk to him like a human, right? Like an adult. So he's like, I'm going to keep doing it. And I'm like, Daniel, I've asked you to stop doing that because I don't like it, and this is my body. So that's what I mean about having boundaries, is like letting him know that it's not okay just to come up to a person and start hitting them. And yeah, it's not your body. So respect their boundaries, but also learning to say no when you don't like something too. So my daughter has started to do it. So Daniel will be like, you're not allowed to do that. And she's like, I can do whatever I want. So she picked that from me. Because I'll say that to Daniel. He'll be like, Mom, you shouldn't do that. And I'm like, but I want to do this, and I can do whatever I want, because this is my, like, I was colouring in wrong or something, you know? It was like,
Wow.
so teaching kids healthy boundaries, but also having your own. And I've had a lot of mums being like, how do I teach my kids to love themselves? And I'm like, do you love yourself? And they're like, no. And I'm like, okay, well, you need to work on that first. Because if you love yourself, they'll start to see that, what that looks like. And I saw a lot of all of my old friends like moaning about their bodies in front of their daughters, and then they started to do it, and it was just sad to watch. So I'm like, no, let's really work on loving ourselves, and then our kids will mimic us.
Mm.
Mm.
But and what is the best part about being a mom in your
um,
opinion?
hmm. Just them saying that they love you, and the humor that they bring. Like, they do some funny stuff. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I got caught up in reading the comments, but go ahead. You said just some funny stuff.
Oh, just them coming to life and building their own personalities, and watching them say no, and watching them get excited about things. And like, that's another thing. Like, we'd go out and my dad would be like, settle down, kids, because we'd be so excited to do something. So we're always at home, because there's 5 of us and we were poor. We weren't that rich. And so we'd go out and be like, yeah, we're at this park, and we'd go crazy, and he's like, settle down. And like, I'd go out with my kids now, and Daniel gets so excited, and I'm like, my body's like, oh, I don't know what to do, because I'm not allowed to do this. I wasn't allowed to
Mm.
do this. So there's a part of me that's like, settle down, and then there's a part of me that's like, no, hear him out. Like, he's excited and he's a kid. Let him be a kid. So I'll be like, I'll tune into my inner self and be like, why don't you just go hang out with him when you couldn't, do that, and we'll just go play. So, you know,
Mm,
it's healed me in so many ways as well, just
being
tuning
a
in
mom.
as well for my younger self that I never got really.
I like the way that you've been able to preserve that side of yourself. I think as we go into adulthood, and I think I've said this before in another interview, as we go into adulthood, we try our best to silence that self
Mm,
because it's not the popular way to approach life at that point. People are putting the responsibilities on you of being an adult, right? So I think it's very important that we continue to preserve that. And this was a good example of how that can be used um in your as an adult, especially when dealing with your kids,
mm,
and outside of that, I think it's important to be preserved because that's where our creativity comes from, and that's where some of our moments of even enlightenment comes from, is that inner child, that energy that the inner child possesses, right?
yeah.
um Moving forward, I'm
Mm,
going to begin closing the interview, but I wanted to ask, what advice do you have for someone that is going through a metamorphosis?
mm.
Mm,
Yeah, just find what you really want. Find out what you want. A visualization you can do is, what's your average perfect day? Like, where would you wake up? Who would you be around? What would you be doing for a job? If money wasn't an option, don't even think of scarce mentality. Think of like, what would you want to do if money wasn't an option? Um, where would you be working? What would you be doing? What would your house be like? And once you get to that kind of visualization of what you want, what kind of friends do you have? What's your nervous system like? What kind of person are you? Are you
mm,
easily reactive, or are you secure in yourself? And then you start to like grow into that person, because if you don't know where you're going, you're not going to go there. But if you can visualize what you want, like write it down, draw a picture, and just start to manifest that life. Um, Sometimes I'll do like a visualization where, you see yourself in 5 years from now. What's your house like? What's your family like? What's your car like? What's your job like? And all that. And then I'll tell them, you don't have to wait 5 years. You can start like literally right now becoming that person. You can start living like that. You can start embodying that. And if you put that out into the universe, it will come back to you. Um, yeah, just stop holding yourself back.
mm.
Yeah.
With you being a mother, what do you hope to see come of the next generation?
Mm. I just hope they know who they are. Like, they know how powerful they are. And I would just be sad to see a whole nother generation get sucked into like the ideals of, you know, what we went through, which was like video clips and flashy cars and having good bodies. And I mean, I grew up watching like Paris Hilton and the other girl. And if you weren't
Kim
Paris,
Kardashian?
you were the fat one. Like, it was just, it was so weird, and Barbie, and like, yeah, we just went into this like
We did.
hypnotic. I need to be like that. I need to be like that. And yeah, it's just like, it's crazy. I just hope social media doesn't ruin the kids, like
Mm,
dancing and
I hope
famous.
neither. I hope not either.
Yeah,
I hope the technological advancements that we'll be experiencing will
yeah.
will not overtake us in the end, right? That's one of my hopes for sure. And
Mm,
I just want to say before I bring around the last question that this was was exhilarating to say the least. And for those who are tuning in now, um, I wanted to say thank you, and that this interview will definitely be posted in the next 24 hours. And I would like everyone to watch this from the beginning. You know, it was wow. But here goes the last question. What does being human mean to you?
Hmm. Like all the lesson, um, I believe we chose to come here and learn. Um, and if you looked at your life, like from where you are right now, like if you looked at your life right now, like you imagine you're on a mountaintop and you're looking at your life and you look back at the journey and you look at the things you've learned and you look at the path that was hard and how it grew you, and you look at the path that was fun and you were skipping through the meadow with your friends, and then you look at that other path that was like dark, but you came out to the light, and you get to this place and you could still be in the dark part now, but you'll get out, and it's all like a learning and it's all a lesson. So being human to me is just the experience. And I remember, like, when I was Christian, I'd always just want to go and die and go to heaven. Like, I always say that. Like, I can't wait till Jesus comes back and I go to heaven. And I remember someone saying, you know, when you're gone, like you're going to miss touch and you're going to miss taste and you're going to miss smell and you're going to miss hugging your kids and you're going to miss, you know, like smelling things and tasting food and standing on the earth and senses, because we don't apparently have those when we're gone. Um, so
Mm,
it's having senses and being in the moment.
wow,
Mm.
that was an inter. I was- I don't think I'm ever going to get over that part. Every time you go, it's just,
Sorry.
yeah, I don't know. It just tickles me. I don't, I don't know why. But regardless of the fact, I wanted to say, that was, I never thought of that, that you missed the senses.
Mm.
Interesting. Um, what I am going to say is, Mary, I want to say thank you, for devoting your time to come on and do this interview first and foremost. Um, really loved it. Um, you also returned the favor by giving me space to like open up about certain things, and even asking me, you know, what I felt about these things too. I thought that was really cool. Um, yeah, just thank you for being you. Thank you for coming on the platform. Thank you for being honest too and vulnerable, you know, in ways that people can learn from. Really, really appreciate it. And please let everyone know where they can find you at, you know, your business. Yeah, please lay it out for them.
First of all, thank you for having me, and I would love to hear your story as well. So,
Thank
have
you.
you shared your story anywhere?
Yes, you could find my story. Okay, so just real quick, my whole story has never been shared. It's actually way too long. I have an extremely like long story, from me being homeless for 15 years.
Wow.
Um, so yeah, the average interviewer only gets like clips. But I filled out two. I'm about to appear in two more magazines. I've appeared in three so far, and I appeared on TV three times for what it, you know, my capabilities, and for my story, right? So I tell people because people want me to be interviewed on Human.
Yeah.
So my interview will go 4 or 5 hours because I've been through, when I say like a lot, I've been through a
Wow.
lot. Some stuff is so deep that it's hard to unroot, right? What I've seen, what I've experienced. But yeah, you could find my story in the About Us section. Excuse me, because I almost got lost in like that hole right there of what that would look like. But you can find my story in the About Us section on the website. So if you go to the website, you hit the About section, there's articles that I still have posted there and this video. But the funny thing about my story, which I like to kind of do this, is I chop it up with every article that comes out or every TV appearance. I say something new that has happened. So if you collectively go through all of that, you'll be like, wow, he's done this. He's also done this. It will also come together, right? Like I kind of wanted to do that for a kick and giggle for myself. Like, haha, I bet you didn't know this part, and then I continue, you know, just lightly sprinkling new things that I have been through and what I've done, right? So
Oh, you're amazing.
thank you. I
Yeah,
appreciate that.
you're going to do huge things with this. It's just getting started, eh? It's just getting started.
Mary, thank you. Makes me want to give you a hug, but we over here
Oh,
talking through the phone.
I'm, I'm to New Zealand time.
But no, let me actually address something before the interview ends, though, at this end part. I feel like we're almost off camera here, but I know great things are coming, but I sometimes struggle with standing in my own way, right? I'm gonna be honest. It's just, I don't know if it's like the fear of success or what it necessarily is, but
Mhm.
it's just, I know human is huge. It has its own energy, though. Human is not, I tell people if you wasn't dealing with me with human, you'll be just dealing with someone else, but human will still be here, period. It's supposed to exist within this span of time that we're moving into, right?
Yeah.
So it's just it's sometimes a little overbearing of a responsibility, like I said before in the interview, to be responsible for almost trying to like not save the world, but impact it in a major way that's positive, right? So
Yeah.
just, and then last but not least, the weight of success, right? That weight, like, oh, you're going to be successful. And then that ideology of having to live up to it.
Mm-hmm.
Whoa, nobody ever speaks about
Soon as
that.
you're successful, you're scrutinized by watching eyes and more watching eyes and more point of views and yeah. But that's what I mean. It's just the beginning. Like, yeah, it will. You just it will give it when you're ready, I guess, for the thousands, the
You said when I,
millions.
yeah,
It'll
I
come.
think that the funny thing is, I think I'm supposed to move at this pace. I don't think it's meant to be like no overnight, oh,
Yeah.
boom, then we're there. Because there's a lot of lessons, like you said, we're here to learn, right? And I want to feed off of what you said before, or piggyback off what you said before. We are here to learn,
Mm,
right? And I think that's really important. I think that's what I'm here for now,
yeah.
right? Maybe in my past life I was rich and now I have this great idea, but I have to go through all of these things to learn what life truly is about. Huh?
That's may have been what you wanted to come and learn, was to have it a little bit harder.
Trust me.
Mm,
But I'm not going to keep you on for too much longer, Mary. I
yeah.
just want you to tell people where they can find you at, and then I will bring
Mine
this to a close.
is free to breathe, and on my website, which is befreetobreathe.com. That's about it, really.
Cool. And
Mm,
let's stay in touch.
yeah,
So that way when I would like to start traveling eventually,
yeah.
to different places and do this in person. So I'd like to start staying in contact with people to get ready to, start doing that in the next like year or two for sure. Um, and funny thing for those who are going to be watching this interview, be prepared because the next 2 weeks, we will be, or 2 or 3 weeks, we'll be interviewing someone from Barcelona. It'll be our first time tapping into that territory. And so I look forward to that. We do have a campfire session that's coming up, by the way, called Isolation, excuse me, Lack of Transparency, Isolation Through Social Media. If anybody's interested in signing up for that or know some people that would be interested in participating, please let us know. And Mary, thank you for being human. We appreciate you and your story. And do you have any closing remarks?
No, just thanks for having me, and even just hearing your insights in your life journey just inspires me, and I know so many others. So thank you so much for doing this, and keep going because it's amazing.
Thank you so much, Mary. And keep reminding people to breathe
Yeah,
because it's important.
slow down.
I was about to crack a joke like, till next time. I'm sorry. All right, man. I'll speak to you later. All right.
All right.
Have a good one. Bye
Bye.
bye.